and welcome back to this episode of Inspire, Teach, Excel, which is focusing on decolonising your classroom. I'm Emily Jubatoni, the Director of Bishop Challoner Training School Alliance Skit, and great to have you here today. So let's start by thinking about what decolonising your classroom is. Decolonising is not about removing lots of things from the curriculum and saying we're not going to study this anymore, we're not going to study this. Instead, it's about adding. It's about thinking we've probably got a really good curriculum where loads of real thought has gone into putting things together. What can we add to develop student understanding of the role of colonisation in our history and the dynamics between maybe Eurocentric points of view and other perspectives, the narrative of the oppressed, different lenses, different points of view. So decolonising the curriculum, if we want to take that step towards thinking about our own individual classrooms, there's 5 really simple things, really simple strategies that we can talk about. So the first is simply to think about displays in your classroom. If you look around your classroom, do you see diverse faces, diverse images that are representative of more than one perspective and more than one point of view and more than one narrative? If not, hopefully quite a simple fix. The second thing you might think about is PowerPoints are the bread and butter of many teachers today. We're always putting them together. We're always using a Google search to find a nice image to illustrate our points. Think about when you're making that Google image. Do you go to page 1 and just use the first image, or do you check page 2, page 3? Again, think about diversity. Diverse images are more likely to be lower down the algorithm that generate things. So having a look and just that really simple check might help you to present a more diverse range of images. Think about the videos that we use. Today, videos in education, they're such a useful tool, whether that's for homework or in classrooms, things that have been put together by experts, really clear explanations, really clear modelling, really clear visualisation, really helpful. You might have a core of videos that you know really, really well. So again, it's not about throwing things out, but thinking, what can you add to make sure that you've got videos that share a diverse range of accents and a diverse range of speakers and a diverse range of, again, perspectives in your classroom? Thinking about the actual teaching that you're doing in the explanations, one of the most powerful things you can do is to talk to students about how knowledge has been created. The knowledge that you're teaching has not emerged out of a vacuum. It's got a history of experts in the field working hard and producing this body of knowledge that we're now kind of disseminating through the classroom. Often that knowledge, especially if we're teaching in UK-based schools, has got a Eurocentric focus. Again, we're decolonising the curriculum. We're not throwing all of that out, but the strategy here is just to talk to the students about where that knowledge came from and why it might have a Eurocentric focus. If you think of some of the kind of iconic scientists that you might have studied from the 17th, 18th centuries, you might be thinking about Isaac Newton. He's a very important man in the history of science. Many of those figures are wealthy, white, British men. Now, that's a very specific group of people, and you're not going to be throwing out some of those figures and saying, well, I'm not going to teach about these individuals. They were crucial to the history of science. But what you might do is explain to the students why there is such a lack of diversity in those individuals. You might explain to them that at that point in history, British society, UK society was still patriarchal. Women did not have the rights or the education to be involved in science in the way they are today. You might talk about how many people at the time had a lack of education. It's not until relatively recently, in the grand scheme of things, that education has become a right that we all have to develop. So lots of people wouldn't have had the level of education. And you might talk about how being independently wealthy gave you the freedom, the education at the time to engage in scientific research very early on in the process. And all of those forces together give us this body of work which has come from white British men. And just having that half a minute explanation just helps to decolonise that classroom by showing and developing that student understanding of where the knowledge has come from. And finally, you might share your own learning on this topic. You could have a board just up on the wall, you know, Mrs. Giubertoni is reading, Mrs. Giubertoni is listening to. Sharing the kind of learning that you are doing. The book I'm reading at the moment is called The Culture Trap, Ethnic Expectations and Unequal Schooling for Black Youth by Darren Wallace. That was recommended on a training session I went on with Krys McInnis, which was on this very topic and was a really powerful training session. And it's a really fascinating book. And I could just have that up on the wall on a little board just so that students can see, you know, this is a dialogue and a discussion everybody is thinking about and trying to develop our understanding of, and that sense that everyone in the classroom is thinking about how can we decolonise our curriculum, how can we decolonise our thinking processes. So that's 5 strategies: displays, Google image search, videos, talking about how knowledge was created and thinking about your own learning that can help you decolonise your own classroom today.